Well, January the 3rd, 1995. I remember.
I worked with Russ Cole for 7 years.
How many times have we had this conversation, detectives? Nothing ever changed.
You know why the story's always the same, 17 years gone? Because it only went down the one way. You wonder ever, you're a bad man?
World needs bad men. We keep the other bad men from the door.
Three, two, one.
Mark. Oh my God, I start this. I immediately forgot. I was just like,
opened
why
my
aren't
mouth
you
and then I
going?
was like, no way.
Okay.
Uh,
Hello. And I'm going to start over. Okay. Hello, and welcome to the Senior Detectives Podcast, a cozy corner to talk about mysteries of all kinds. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Hannah. Today we'll be covering season 1 of the hit HBO anthology TV series True Detective, created by Nick Pizzolatto and Isa Lopez. Louisiana State Police homicide detectives Rustin Rust Cole and Martin Marty Hart investigate the murder of Dora Lang in 1995. During the investigation, Hart's infidelity threatens his marriage to Maggie, his wife, and Cole struggles to cope with his troubled past. 17 years later, they must revisit the investigation, now seemingly related to a slew of other unresolved missing persons cases and murders.
Yeah. So this is it's basically a mini series because each season is separate from the one before it.
Right.
And I love a good mini series. So that was exciting for me.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the only one I've seen as well.
Okay, me
I
too.
think there's four seasons of it out now. And I think the newest one was the closest it's come to like being as good as the first season from what I hear from people. I haven't seen it myself.
That's kind of a bummer, but I guess I get it. I mean, I feel like this one would definitely have put them on a high. Like they're up on a pedestal. They really made it hard for themselves, I think.
They did.
And the cast is huge. It's Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson in a role that I've never seen Woody Harrelson do.
Right. Both of these guys.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like this was kind of, I think, around the start of Matthew McConaughey taking on more serious stuff, like around the time when he did like
Interstellar, maybe.
Yeah. And like Dallas Buyers Club and just kind of like was getting into more like serious acting. And I think prior to this, I had never seen either one of these mostly like comedic actors take on stuff like this. And they both they both knock it out of the park. They do so well. And I feel like their chemistry is like the foundation of the season and it works so well.
Their relationship is very relatable. I would say that they're both pretty extreme, especially Rust, which is Matthew McConaughey's character, but like the small town ideology versus the like wildly expansive ideology and the way it clashes. I'm just like, this is like my childhood and where we grew up and all of that.
It is relatable. Yeah. I will say that one shot of them in the car where Rust is just like rambling about some shit and Woody Harrelson is looking at him like, I'm going to kill this. It's basically a meme at this point. That one shot. Yeah. It's
done.
I also
perfectly.
would get really frustrated working with Rust, which is Matthew's character.
I agree.
With both of these men, I would lose my mind.
I think I'm more on board with Russ like visions of life. But man, he does. He rambles and he rambles and he rambles in times when he shouldn't. I mean, he does not pick up on the social cues or he doesn't care.
He just doesn't care.
Yeah. And he's so pretentious. It's tough. Anyways,
Yeah.
so we're going to structure this one kind of how we always do when we cover an entire season of something. We're going to talk in depth about the first episode because it's set up. And then we're going to hit the major points in between and then, talk in depth about the ending.
You have your typical sort of HBO style theme song.
It's so
sequence
good.
here. They're so good at it. It's
I didn't
one of their,
skip it a single time. I was like, yes.
HBO knows how to do a theme sequence and not make it boring and somehow set the mood so well. They're so good at that.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's that one part of it where the traveling church, that guy that they talk to in that, he goes like praise. And I'm just like, yes.
Yeah. It hypes you up for like a show that is mostly not all that intense of a show except for really few key points, like a lot of it is just talking.
Yeah. It is dark. We should preface that. I don't know if we're going to do a trigger warning for this one. Probably should. It's dark, guys. I'm proud of myself for getting through
I was
it.
going to say, I'm very proud of you, Lauren, for getting through such a dark. I was kind of halfway expecting you to get a couple episodes in and be like, I'm done.
Yeah, I did it in chunks. Like I would watch like 3 episodes and then take a break and for many, many days and only watch like happy things and then come back to it and it's short. I think that also helped that I knew the ending was coming. Yeah. And so it takes place in 2012. Martin, Woody Harrelson's character, and Rust, Matthew McConaughey's character, are being separately interviewed by people that we don't know yet, but it's clearly an agency. And they're talking about how they were partners for the Louisiana State Police Criminal Investigation Division back in the day. And so they start talking about a case from 1995. And from there, it kind of cuts back and forth between that case and present day. So I used the fact that they're getting interviewed in 2012 to give me hope and comfort for their 1995 case because clearly they don't die.
Right. There are a few moments back when the timeline you're watching is in 1995 where you're worried for them. And it is nice to know, okay, they make it at least.
Yeah, right.
They're alive. Yeah. So the whole show, or at least for most of it, you're cutting back and forth between them working on this case in 1995 together, meeting for the first time and working on that case, and then clearly post some sort of big rift between them where they are not speaking and have not spoken for a long time while the 2012 interviews are happening.
Yeah.
So I feel like part of the mystery, honestly, in addition to the case they're working on, is what happened between them that caused this sort of a rift where they refuse to speak with each other.
Totally. And Rust is not doing well.
No.
He looks like he's in rough shape, clearly an addict. Yeah. So what happened to him as well? Because in 1995, he is clean cut. I mean, he's got issues clearly, but also it seems like he maintains it and has his shit together pretty well.
Right. He's hiding his demons a lot better in 1995. And I feel like in the 2012 scenes, he's very much succumbing to them and really going through some shit. And it's very much showing on his outward appearance.
Yeah. Yeah. So the setup for the case in 1995 is rough. So a woman has been tied to the base of a tree, this big, big tree in a cornfield. I think it was corn. She's in a kneeling position, totally naked, blindfolded, and she's got this crown with antlers on it attached to her head and a spiral symbol on her back.
The imagery of the way that this murder scene was staged is very cult, or even occult looking. It just kind of evokes that sort of Blair Witch weird kind of vibe where you're just I don't like that.
It
I mean,
even has
staged
the
murders are always
Yes.
really unnerving and stuff. But yeah, like there's even like, I think you're about to say like the little twig
Yes.
like structures and stuff. It reminds me a lot also of the show Hannibal, which is a fantastic show. You would never ever get through it.
Probably not. It doesn't
You would
sound
never
like
get
it.
Hannibal is one of those shows that is so gory and so like visceral. You have to be enjoying that in order to watch that show. But a lot of the murders in Hannibal are this is the vibe.
Yeah, not for me, I think, because these scenes are tough.
Yeah.
It's very raw. I mean, it's a rated R show. They do not shy away from it. I mean, like, you don't see any sort of assault really on screen, which I am thankful for. But it's just obvious in the way that they have portrayed the murder scene and a couple other things that happened. So yeah, it's rough. And the difference of these two men who are both, detectives is immediately apparent. Like Rust is very methodical. He's like doing his preliminary examination, writing everything down. He's already got theories. Yeah. And Martin is like, I've never seen anything like this before. Holy shit.
Yeah. So it's like small town Louisiana. They're meeting for the first time this day. And yeah, Woody Harrelson's character, Marty, is just like, this is beyond me and beyond my scope. I'm out of my depth here.
Yeah.
And I think the implication is that Rust has been or has some experience with like murder cases like this before. Like maybe not exactly like this, but this sort of level of violence.
Yeah. He's not very fazed.
No, it becomes more and more clear that like he has enough dark shit going on in his own life that like the dark stuff they're facing at work kind of just like melts into that. It's not as jarring for him.
Yeah. But he does want to solve it. He's like,
oh yeah,
very invested in solving this murder. And so his theory is that the criminal that did this was a metapsychotic, is what he's calling it, basically used this woman to see out a vision forbidden by society. And she was likely a prostitute or someone that they figured wouldn't really be that missed in our normal society. And it seems pretty obvious this ain't the first time this has happened, because it is very, it's like a whole scene.
It's just a very well organized crime scene. So it's like clear that they have done this before. It's very well practiced. Yeah, that doesn't bode well because this is the first one they at least know about.
Right. Which is so scary. And it kind of seems like this one is so public that they've practiced enough and now they're ready to kind of.
Right. I feel like they always say that sort of thing, right? In murder case kind of movies and TV shows. It's like as soon as they've escalated and taken it to where it's like they've posed the body in a public place, it's like it's an escalation of like what they've already been doing. That's, I mean, the psychology of it. Already kind of a bigger scope of a case than they were maybe expecting.
Yeah. And I will say that a through line of the entire show is that Rust, it really seems like he knows his shit, but nobody wants to believe him. Nobody wants it to be a serial killer. Nobody wants him to be right about these things. And so they definitely push back against him, which is unfortunate and realistic, I think.
Right. It's realistic. Like I think there's a lot of nods to small town corruption in this show and in this first season's case of like how far people are willing to go in like small town communities like that to like protect their own back, but also like by doing so they're protecting other people around them who they know are doing wrong things. And it's the corruption is rampant.
It is. Yeah. Seems like a losing battle at some point.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, the case is like the through line for this season, but I feel like what this season about is Rust and Martin's relationship and like I don't know if I would call it a friendship, but their relationship and how it changes them. They go through a lot of stuff personally throughout the season. And I feel like it just keeps coming back to how they relate to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very personal story. I feel like this.
It is.
So.
Yeah. In the face of something really gruesome and, awful, like how do they cope?
Mm-hmm.
And they're very different. Like they disagree on basically everything.
Every possible moment
yeah.
that they could.
Especially if it has to do with like theology or anything that's not like physical, like any mental processes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Rustin is clearly the one that it would be hard to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And even though Marty, I think, finds him to be a huge pain in the ass, he vouches for him. He sticks up for him. He realizes that he's smart and that he should be on these cases,
Right. He recognizes the value of Rust and having him on the case despite him being just like, truly a pain in the ass to have around. Just like, I have to deal with this guy's pretentious ramblings about life and existential
just
like it's just constant existential ramblings, which is very draining. But he's good at his job and he brings a lot to the table. And so Martin's declared as the lead for the case and they both stay on.
Mm-hmm.
So Rust goes out that night to follow up on some leads.
He does not have a work-life balance.
No, like neither one of them really do, but
That's
Martin's much better at it. He is clearly distracting himself from his daughter's birthday, which has rolled around. You find out that she died and essentially haunts him. I mean,
she shows up like...
Right. He has visions of her and he's clearly an addict. And in the present day, his addiction and this like coping with all of this has gotten a lot worse, like we said. Yeah,
he literally asks the people like questioning him. He's like, I'm not going to talk to you until you get me a 6-pack.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
You find out like part of his backstory is that he worked undercover in narcotics, right?
Yes, I think.
For a long time. And so he was
deep undercover,
doing a lot of drugs, and it really has stuck with him in a bad way.
In a bad way, yeah. And then from there, he was like, I want to be homicide somewhere. I think just because he thought that he would be the most helpful doing that, and it's a deviation from his past, but yikes. So the victim was ID'd as a woman named Dora Lang. It is revealed that she was drugged with LSD, tied up, no prints, like nothing to tie a killer to her at all.
Mm-hmm.
And their next move is to go and interview the people in the town where she was found. And they learn of another little girl that went missing a few years back named Marie Fontenot. And she comes back in a big way, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. A preacher that they talk to, they show him pictures of the little stick pyramids that were present at the scene. And he calls them devil catchers.
Had you ever heard that before?
No, I had never heard that before.
Me either.
I feel like I've seen a lot of things like that, those little stick twig pyramids and structures, and they mean something different in every media that I see them in. Like, it's like, I don't know. There's just, they tend to be applied to a bunch of different occult things. And you can
I feel like it's always horror.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. To the point where I don't fuck with little stick things when I'm out in the woods. Because you do find them every now and then because people just make stuff. Like the same way people make like cairns or something.
Yeah.
It's like people just mess with stuff out in the woods, but like, am I going to touch it? No.
No. It could be cursed. Like, yeah. So they actually go to visit Marie's uncle, who is like her last living relative that they know of where he is. He has cerebral palsy now, so it's kind of hard to talk to him. But they go and they kind of like snoop around, and they find one of the devil catchers in his old shed in the backyard. And they're like, dude, this might have been here since she went missing. So like already there's a link between the two.
Mm-hmm. It's very unsettling that
Yeah.
they find it there. It's like, has it been placed there recently or has it been there for years? Both answers are horrible, and I don't like
Horrible.
either one.
Yep. And she's not an adult, she's a little girl. Like,
She's little, yeah. Like
Yeah.
the body that we found at the beginning of the episode was like a young woman, whereas like this is like a little girl, a child.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be a pattern as far as age of the victim or anything like that.
Women.
It's unnerving.
But yeah.
Well, yeah.
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 To be expected, unfortunately.
So the first episode kind of wraps up in the present day of 2012, and we learn that they worked together for about 7 years, but that they haven't spoken for 10 years. The investigators want to know more about Rust than they do about the case from 1995. It kind of becomes clear that like, oh, they're investigating him.
Yeah. They're not great at hiding it.
No. It becomes clear they think he had some sort of involvement.
Yeah, because there's actually, in 2012, there has been a new murder, which is very reflective of the one from 1995. Like, it's super similar. At this point, I was like, okay, either they want Rust's help because, he was the expert on that case, or they straight up think he did it.
And I don't think you know this until later, but they wrapped up the case back in the 90s and thought that they had solved it. And then, another murder happens.
Yeah.
Very much the same way. So I think it's a reasonable assumption to be like, okay, so we either have some sort of copycat from somebody who would have had information about the like insider information about the original murders, or it's the original murderer. And
if it was me, I probably, instead of just immediately assuming that it was the detective that worked on it, I would probably ask for his help, but in the way of like, this is clearly a cult thing. There's probably more of them, or somebody else has picked it back up and it is kind of a copycat situation. I don't think I would immediately jump to Rusty's the murderer.
No, and they don't seem to have the same suspicions about Marty.
No.
Like, they are talking to him, but to learn more about Rust. It's like they're not really, he's not really on their radar as a suspicion.
Yeah. Yeah. And Marty always sticks up for him.
Yeah.
Even, they haven't spoken in 10 years, and he is still sticking up for Rustin. And I think that's cool.
And they've been through some shit. So it means a lot. When you find out like what all they went through, it's I think it means something that he's still vouching for this man.
Still has respect. Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to go through episodes 2 through 7 because there's only 8 episodes, and just hit the major points. So the main personal through lines for like half of these is that Martin is cheating on his wife. So
and Russ finds out about it.
Yeah. So that's
Quickly.
like a thing. Eventually it goes to shit and they break up. Yeah. That sucks. That sucks because I really like Martin's character, and I think that's the one quality of his that
Right. Like, he has a ongoing affair. Like, he and his wife break up and get back together. He breaks up with his mistress, but then like eventually picks up another mistress. And like it's shitty. And then like Rust finds out about his affair pretty quickly. And like lets him know in like a clear way, hey man, I know what's going on, and kind of calls him on it a little bit.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, they're constantly butting heads.
Yeah.
Personally as well as professionally.
Yeah, because it's not cool. And Rustin really likes his wife. Like, she's a sweetheart. She's a doll.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Who's she? Is it Michelle Monaghan?
Can't remember.
That plays her.
Yeah, she does great.
Maggie
as well. You really feel for her. And then so the other main through line is that Rustin is definitely suffering from PTSD. He's got demons.
He talks regularly about seeing like visions. Well, like he's haunted by his daughter, but then he also has other like crazy kind of visions he talks about a little bit. And yeah, he's dealing with some shit.
There's a couple scenes. I think it's really neat how they do it. Like, it kind of is clear that it has shifted to Rustin's perspective visually. And then, like, something on the screen will, like, distort. Like, there's one scene where he watches, like, swallows, like birds, come together and form shapes and stuff. And it's not reality. But you can tell that you're seeing it through Rust's eyes. It's very neat how they, like, snuck it in there.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of like the tripping was portrayed in Midsummer. If anybody has seen that, I believe they take acid at the beginning of that movie. And yeah, they're just walking through Sweden and it's beautiful. And then like sometimes the leaves will like blow in the wind, but it like doesn't look quite right. And like, but it's very subtle.
Yeah.
To the point where you're just like, hold on. It's very well done. I think I visually like the look of it as well.
Yeah. So also they have to solve this case before a task force takes it from them. And it's the task force for crimes against Christianity.
We're in deep Louisiana.
Yeah. I mean, literally it was appointed by the governor of the state of Louisiana, whose cousin is a very famous pastor by the name of Reverend Billy Tuttle. Religion is very much ingrained into this entire story.
Oh, it's a huge factor. And I kind of feel like the state of Louisiana itself is like one of the characters in this show. Like the backdrop it sets for this whole case and everything. It's like beautiful and creepy and haunting at the same time.
It seems dangerous. Like the landscape.
It really sets the mood. I think it was the perfect place to sort of set this case. They're surrounded by the creep factor of it.
And
all
Rust
the time.
comments on it so often. He's kind of mean about it. Yeah. He just like talks about the small town vibes and how awful it is.
Right. Because he's not from the area. He's come in to work on this case.
He's from Alaska, actually.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Really different to Louisiana.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So one of the first places they go it's a brothel type place out in the country. And it's just like a collection of trailers, which is a very Louisiana way to have a brothel.
I don't know what word you would use, but brothel seems to like invoke there's like some sort of building or something and like a method of organization. But this is literally just like a place where people know they can go to pick up women for sex work. Like,
yeah.
And they all just sort of live there in these trailers. It's very grim.
It is.
This living situation.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of places they go that are quite grim. So Dora had been staying here before she died, and she left behind a diary, which literally everyone that you've talked to about her so far is like, she started going to church. She was getting better because she started going to church, as if that's like a qualifier for her mental health.
Right. Yeah. She was doing great.
Yeah.
But the church that she was going to, they go to check it out. It's burned down.
It's in the middle of nowhere.
Bad
Burned down.
vibes. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
And on the inside of it, they find a drawing on the wall that resembles the murder scene.
Church was helping her out.
Yeah.
The fire, it turns out, was pretty recent. There was like a rotating congregation was using this church, and that she had been going, and she was seen attending church with this man with a burn on his face, like a very just kind of notable burn on his face.
Yeah, this man comes back pretty often, and it kept making me think of The Alienist, because that's how they, described their victim. Is all they knew about him was that he had like intense facial spasms and things.
Yeah. Something was going on with his face. Right.
Yeah.
They find a victim from years ago. Her boyfriend, whose name is Reggie Ledoux, was tracked down to later be cellmates with Dora's ex-husband. And this confirms that, like, okay, maybe this is the guy. Like, maybe this is our guy.
It's how he specifically found out about. Is it Dory? I kept writing Dory, but it's Dora, right?
Dora. Yeah, Dora.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, and they go and they visit this man in prison, And literally at the end of it, he's like, did I get her killed? And Russ goes, probably.
I mean, look, man, she's dead. You should probably feel like a little bit bad about it.
Oh, yeah.
She died horribly.
It's just his.
Probably had something to do with it.
He is brutally honest.
Mhm.
Like, he does not give a fuck about people's
No, he
feelings.
doesn't spare this man's feelings even a little bit.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So they go to find Reggie, who is currently cooking drugs for a motorcycle gang called the Iron Crusaders. Rust is familiar with this gang from his like undercover narcotics days.
Mhm.
So he goes back undercover to like get to Reggie,
Yeah.
basically. But this is all off the books, not happening professionally.
Yeah.
We're not writing any of this down.
Yeah. Which is partially why the investigators in present day are so interested in him, because first off, none of his undercover work, like in his previous years, was on the record, like, or at least it's sealed from them. So they don't know what he was doing. And then this, he takes like emergency leave to go visit his sick dad or whatever.
In Alaska,
Yeah.
which is convenient.
Convenient. And he's gone for like 2 weeks or something, like a long time. And they want to know what he was doing. And Marty obviously doesn't give anything away. But I mean, I guess I do get it. Like, there's chunks of this man's life where they have no idea what he was up to.
Sure. I mean, the whole concept of going undercover, and like, especially if you're going undercover somewhere that's like a really big deal where only as minimal amount of people can know about it as possible, is so scary. Like,
I know.
in The Departed, there's only like 1 or 2 people that know Leonardo DiCaprio's character's undercover in that movie, but like deep undercover, and literally like I think only his boss knows. And so it's like if something happens to that one person,
Yeah.
it's not in writing, like everything's sealed, you don't have any
Yeah.
proof that like somebody told you to do this. It's scary.
It is scary. And
don't
it's
like-
usually very dangerous, which is
Mhm.
why, like, these are not good people that handle things calmly.
Right.
Yeah, like he immediately starts like trying to make it look like he's got needle marks on his arms. So
Yeah,
he puts like
track marks.
cayenne pepper in water and then shoots the water in, but it seems so terrible. All the things that he has to do to accomplish this.
Yeah. I have a thing with needles, especially, and like I don't fuck with intravenous needles.
Yeah.
And yeah, that scene where he does the cayenne pepper is like,
Yeah.
I am not built that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's dedicated. He really wants to solve the case and get justice for these women.
He
And
is.
in the present day interviews, like Martin is sticking up for Russ and like covering his ass as far as saying, you know, like he's still not admitting that he went undercover.
Yeah.
They are still covering.
I
that
will
up.
say though, Marty is definitely covering for Rust, but probably also for himself because he does get involved at like the worst possible time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they had to kind of make a pact.
Yeah.
To agree not to ever say what went down with this motorcycle gang. So Russ goes undercover and it goes really poorly. Like he's working his way to get to Reggie. People die.
It's a
Like,
tough collection of scenes.
It is. It is. And he gets what he's looking for, but at a cost, for sure.
It's bad. I think I might have even fast forwarded through some of it because I was like, okay, this is all just like them escaping what they have done. And yeah, it's like random people. Like they broke into somebody's house to escape the cops. And then a bunch of those people die. Like it's for nothing. Yeah.
Needless violence.
Yeah.
They end up meeting with Reggie's cook partner and he doesn't buy their cover.
Yeah.
He's very suspicious and very onto them and won't talk to them. But they follow him through the woods.
Yeah, guy's not that smart.
No.
How would you not notice that?
Yeah.
But he ain't the brightest tool in the shed.
No. They follow him like out into the middle of nowhere, backwoods, swamp, Louisiana. And they cuff Reggie. They get him in cuffs and they get the partner stopped.
Yeah.
And so it's like the situation's under control.
Yeah.
And then Marty finds 2 children
Yeah.
in their shed and loses his shit.
Yeah. It's a bad scene. Like, clearly
Yeah.
these children have been abused. They're incredibly malnourished, like on the border of death.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I understand why he loses his shit. I mean, he's a father as well. And he's done a really good job of like subtly making this his character. Like, up to this point, I think it's totally believable what he does. He comes back out, like storms back out, shoots Reggie in the head.
Yeah, just executes this man.
Yeah.
And then Rust shoots his partner, his cooking partner. So they have executed these 2 men,
Yeah.
like without any
Like vigilante
trial.
style.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
they should go to jail for this, but they
Yeah.
were. I mean, morally, they were operating within a certain ethical line, but
Yeah. I mean, it was
lawfully.
definitely in the heat of the moment. If they had kept them alive, they could have gotten information out of them. They could have gotten names, etc. So, like, obviously, this is not the best way to do it practically or within the law. But to be real, when that happened, I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
all right.
that checks out. Maybe not what I would have done, but who can say?
Yeah. And I love Russ' response because he's immediately like, I got your back. We need to cover this up right now.
We'll just make this look like we followed them out here and like a shootout happened. They fired on us and we had to shoot back in order to protect ourselves. And they just make it look like they apprehended them and then they died in a shootout rather than just getting executed.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's this like scene of them carrying the children out like through dust clouds, and it gets a lot of press coverage.
Oh, they're welcomed back as heroes for this. They're like promoted. They successfully cover it up and it goes very well for them.
To the point, like, yeah, they got promoted. And Martin, this is when he gets his wife back into his life. Rustin starts dating someone for a little while. And then he goes down in like history with the police department because he continuously gets them confessions. And he like assists other people getting their confessions like on their case. He's just really good at getting people to like open up about the horrible things that they've done.
Right. Well, I mean, like the more time you spend with Rust's character throughout the season, it's like you get it.
Yeah.
He has this way of like rambling, but he does the same thing with Martin. He uses that and he can disarm you with like his ramblings, and he gets you in this space where you are actually willing to like share really personal shit with him and trust him.
Yeah.
It's a skill.
And it's not false confessions. Like he's not threatening them or making them like manipulating them to believe that they did these things. He's basically just like, confess to me, like confess your sins and I will forgive you.
And then they do.
Because he's like, people just want validation. And then, oh my God, there's this one scene where he has gotten this woman to confess to being Munchausen by proxy. Like she killed her child, basically. And at the end of it, he looks her dead in the eyes and he's like, prison is not nice to people that are bad to children. You might consider killing yourself. Gets up and leaves.
I'm sorry, like this man, like, yeah, that's Russ. Like that's his character. It's just like there's no lines for him.
Yeah,
really, in general.
Yeah, he doesn't have the same boundaries as like other people.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So that's like they kind of turn their lives around. Russ is operating well within the department, and in one of these confessions, a man tells him that he didn't get the true murderer of those women and wants to make a deal for that information.
He loses it. Yeah.
And when they had come back the next day, that guy has committed suicide. He had gotten a call which caused him to commit suicide, and they traced that call back to a payphone.
Yeah.
And so it's like this case that has been closed for a while now is being kind of reopened. And so
Yeah.
they're kind of retracing their steps a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And Rust goes to the original scene where they found the woman under the tree from the very beginning. And there's now a big circle, like a big stick sculpture on the tree. Like it's
Mm-hmm. Clearly someone has come back and paid homage. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is the end of an episode. It's gnarly. The end of the episodes are really just like,
yeah. Classic HBO. Yeah.
I hate it. Yeah. And it causes Rust to like totally spiral out. And I think it's totally fair because they killed these men without learning anything from them. So there totally could be more of them.
Or those guys were just had those kids and it was like a separate thing altogether. Like they don't really super know, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at this point, it cuts back to present day for a little bit. And we learn that the reason these two were brought in for questioning is because at the new murder scene, Rustin has been spotted several times. He's like hanging around and not admitting to it.
To which they interpret as like, oh, okay, it's been him from the start.
Right.
Like he's hanging out by this new murder scene and has all the information from the previous murder scenes. And they come to the conclusion they think he was involved from the get-go. And they kind of allude to at some point, which is a right about the 10 years ago point when he and Marty stopped talking, where Russ kind of went off the grid. Like nobody really knows what he's been up to for the past 10 years.
Yeah.
He hasn't been working. They want to know. So they're asking Marty, like, what happened to make him go off the grid and disappear since 2002?
Yeah.
And he's not about it.
Yeah, no.
Refuses.
I love that about Marty. He's straight up like, I'm not going to help y'all. Goodbye.
Yeah, that's not my business.
But then they bring in Maggie, who is now his ex-wife. In present day, they are not together anymore. And I'm like, hoo-hoo, what's going to happen with her? But anyways, when you learn what Rust has been doing off grid, I'm like, is that really off grid though? I feel like they could figure out what he was doing.
They could absolutely have, especially if he keeps showing up at their crime scene. Like, how hard is it to just like follow him and figure out what he's been up to?
Anyways,
we jump back to the past. Russ has figured out that like, okay, this case was not solved. Something is going on. There's at least like a bigger situation here than originally we thought. And he starts looking into like old missing persons cases in the area. And the Tuttle organization, which is, if you remember, the governor's cousin, was the Reverend Tuttle.
It's a huge Christian organization. Specifically, they had been funding a program to finance rural schools. So like one of those, I think Marie Fontenot, one of the missing kids, went to. It has since been shut down. The whole program has been shut down. So there's all these abandoned schools. But it was like, instead of getting a public education, you should be able to choose. Your kid can get a religious education, that kind of thing. But like through looking into this, he learns of like rumors of basically child molestation.
Yeah, so it's pretty clear that organization was like, or at least somebody within it was using the like setting up of these small schools as like a perfect opportunity for finding new victims.
Yeah,
which is disgusting.
And I mean, he literally talks to people that went to these schools. Like at one point, I think he talks to a man about it, and he's like, I remember basically being drugged. And these guys would come in with animal masks on and take videos and take pictures and do things to us. But he's like, I've basically tried to write it off as a dream in my mind.
I mean, how else do you cope with that?
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, I don't know how you address something like that from your past, especially if you don't even truly remember the details.
Right.
Like you kind of, I mean, I don't know. That's horrible. And like they just uncover so much depravity in this section. I feel like this is the darkest like section of the show.
It's
for
bad
sure.
because nothing happened. No consequences. I mean, the only thing that happened is that these schools shut down, but everything was covered up, which is unfortunately not that far off from the reality of some things that have happened in our world, which I'm just like, how did they get away with that on such a big scale? It's crazy.
Right. Well, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where it's like, I mean, this guy has connections to the fucking governor, and he's running this Christian organization that like at like a lower tier in his organization, like they have protection ultimately from the governor. Like the corruption just goes so deep, and like, I mean, there's many examples in true crime of like of people just covering shit up like, and just allowing stuff to happen, and there's just no consequences. It's insane.
It is insane.
And then like this is just particularly bad because it's revolves around preying on children.
Yeah, children.
I feel like the darkest part of it all.
Yeah, and it was at this point where I was like, okay, they really are going to make this have a really large scope. How are they ever going to beat this? Like within the context of the show, this seems like a fight that these two men, mostly just Rust at this point, cannot fight.
He's going to have to question so many higher ups that have way more power in government and law than he does.
And nobody likes him.
Right.
You have to be likable.
He's the perfect person to just like kill and be like, oh, he committed suicide. He was unstable. Yeah. Like, oh, darn, the guy looking into us.
Yeah.
Just
right.
Right. He's the perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was worried.
Scapegoat.
It's like, how is this going to end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we kind of get a little insight into what happened between Russ and Marty at this time, which is that one night Marty's wife found out that he was cheating again. Like she had found out about his first affair. They'd broken up. They got back together, trying to save their marriage. He's cheating again. He's got a new mistress. Russ comes over one night and
she comes
he's
to
drunk.
him. She goes to him.
Oh, is it? It's at his apartment, isn't it? And he's drunk. Like, yeah. So like this could be interpreted as a rape scene.
Yeah, 100%. I know.
Feel like it could be like he's not sober and she seems sober and seems like she comes over with a purpose and fully intends to sleep with him and does.
She manipulates the fuck out of him.
Yeah, like he clearly doesn't want to do it until it happens and then goes through with it. And it's a bummer,
immediately
man.
after, she's like, I'm sorry. This is the only way he'll leave. This will hurt him enough that he will leave me. And I think that's so cowardly. Leave him.
I mean, it is.
Why aren't you leaving him? I mean, you're going to fuck up their entire relationship, their partnership, because you couldn't be the brave one and leave him.
Right.
I mean, maybe though it was because that he would always be trying to get her back.
Right. I think that's the case because she has left him before. Like they have broken up and she's left him. And I think he kind of wouldn't give up on the marriage, like would not walk away and accept defeat. Not that I'm condoning this at all, but like I think that was her headspace. It was just like he has to want it to be over.
Yeah.
And I have to do something horrible in order for him to want it to be over. And she chooses Rust, and it's shitty. And
it's so bad. I hated
Marty and
watching
Rust fight. And yeah, it sucks. It sucks to watch them fight. And Rust immediately quits. And this is when he like essentially goes off grid.
Yeah. Goes off grid. He just goes back home to Alaska and works like in a shipyard or something.
Be in space.
I mean, I'm sorry. He had a job. You could like literally find out where he was.
It's Alaska, Lauren. That's so far away.
Yeah. Anyways, so then they split up, Marty and Mikey. And when they're questioning her in the present day, nobody talks about this. Nobody admits what happened.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because it's like a personal affair. It's not like it had anything to do with the case, or like they're literally coming at Rust for being a murderer. And nobody could say, oh, like we slept together and that's why me and my husband got divorced, and they got mad, and that's why he left. Like,
And Russ left, and went back home to Alaska. I feel like that's a reasonable explanation.
and it's a lot better than him being a murderer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So we cut back to the present and we stay in the present now. There's no more scenes from the past now. And
Yeah.
Rust and Marty meet up at a bar to kind of talk. This is for the first time since they've both being separately interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
And since he slept with his wife and everything went to shit.
Yeah.
But he's come back to solve this case. Rust has from Alaska.
I don't know if it's maybe in the last episode that he talks about it or if I even wrote it down, but Marty eventually gets him to admit why he finally came back, because it's been, 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think partially it had to do with a new murder, like he saw that.
Right.
But also he low-key admits that he wants to die and he needs to solve this before he dies. So that's sad.
Yeah, Rust, when we say Rust in the present day timeline is not doing well, he is not doing well.
Yeah.
And it's really bleak, the place that he's in. Yeah. He convinces Marty to help him solve this case for good by showing him evidence that he found in one of Tuttle's homes, which is absolutely horrific. It is a video of the little girl from the way back, Marie Fontenot, who went missing, and she was drugged and then raped and killed by a bunch of men in animal masks. And it is the thing from this show that stuck with me. It's rough.
It's bad. They don't show you the rape.
No. Yeah, it's not like you're watching a stunt film.
It's a very small clip of her. It kind of seems like their little ritual has just started. And that's all you see. And then it switches to Martin's face as he watches it. And his resolve and just utter disgust set in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, everyone who sees it, their reaction to it is very intense, which is fair.
And it turns out at this point in the timeline that Tuttle is dead.
He's died. Yeah.
And Rust thinks that somebody killed him before he could be blackmailed because this video exists and
Rust
he
stole
thinks,
it.
okay, Rust did not get this legally.
Yeah.
So he thinks okay, somebody had this video, presented it and was like, I'm going to manipulate you now. It's just clear that there's a bigger organization going on and he thinks that somebody killed Tuttle before he even had a chance to be blackmailed and had an opportunity to give up anybody else.
Yeah. So, obviously these people are not above killing their own people. I mean, this pastor was very famous and very involved. So
he was the connection to the governor and they offed him no problem.
And that's also partially why the investigators are so interested in Rust, because he was poking around Reverend Tuttle, and now Tuttle is dead after his home got broken into. This sequence of events, it doesn't look great for Rusty.
Mm-mm.
If they knew what was going on, obviously. I'm like, okay, but look somewhere else. But I guess I do get it.
Yeah. So now what Martin is up to at this point in time is he's running a private investigative agency. So he's also no longer an officer.
Yeah.
And they decide that they need to find the man with the facial scarring, which is, if you remember, is the man that Dora was seen going to church with.
Yeah, that they never actually found.
But the new detective.
Oh my God. The end of this
working
episode
this case is so frustrating.
It's so scary too.
Oh man. Yeah, it's creepy. It's creepy. It's one of those scenes that makes you wonder how close you have come, brushed.
Oh gosh, don't say that.
Cause I'm sure just going about life.
Yeah.
We brush up against people who do horrible things, but we just,
you don't know it.
You have no, you don't know it.
I just watched a TikTok of a guy talking about how he thinks that he encountered a serial killer because he went to take photos of this home that was supposed to have no one in it. And the guy claimed to be the owner and then really, 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 really wanted him to go to the basement. and he like didn't, like his, you know, red flags went up.
Yeah. I see.
And, and I was just like, yeah. Shit like that.
Fuck that. Yeah. The new detectives working on the case, the ones who are suspect Rust, encounter the man with the facial scarring, but they don't know his significance.
Right. Yeah.
And it's creepy.
He's mowing a graveyard in the middle of nowhere that the church maintains, and he gives them directions, you know.
And then it kind of like zooms in on the fence, and the fence is all fucked up, and like you're just like, oh, that was him.
That was
Shit.
him.
That was him. And they just drive away.
Yes, they do. And we actually open our last episode, episode 8, with him. So if you weren't unsettled by him before, get fucking ready, because wow. He lives out in the bayou with a woman. Don't know what her deal is. They both seem very mentally unhinged.
I believe she's his sister, which is upsetting because there's some abuse happening.
Oh.
And
no.
I believe they're related.
You know, I was wondering, I got that vibe, obviously, but I was like, where does she fit into? Oh, no. Oh, that's so much worse.
It is worse.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, because they have like a relationship.
There's like a sexual element here.
Yeah.
And he is insane.
He's insane.
Like completely unstable.
He's got his dad in a shed outside his house, tied up like Jesus, totally dead, like been dead for a long time. Talks to him though like he's alive.
Psycho style. Yeah. I mean, it's like Psycho.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you.
And he works for the church still, and he does odd jobs around schools. Like you see him like painting a school or something and talking to the kids, and he puts on different voices.
Yeah.
Depending on who he's talking to, or I guess whatever mood he's in or whatever. It's so unnerving.
It's deeply unsettling to watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole series of scenes is a lot to take in. You're just getting a glimpse into this man's life. Like Russ and Martin haven't even found him yet, you know?
Yeah.
You're just kind of getting a glimpse into like, okay, this is clearly the guy.
Yeah.
And what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So Russ and Martin, of course, the guy who originally handled the Marie Fontenot case, they force him to watch the tape of her death that they found. Oof.
I know. He was so against them because, I mean, they held him at gunpoint in the middle of nowhere on his boat. I mean, it's rough.
Yeah.
But he was like really fighting it until he watches the video. And then he's like, God damn. I guess I'll be honest with you guys now.
Right. Because the case, the Marie Fontenot case, had been filed under made in error, and the sheriff kept him from investigating further, which is the corruption trickling down.
Big corruption. And he literally got promoted less than a year later, like as a thank you, basically.
We're like walking away from it, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this is at what point they link an old paint job on a house in the area to the scarred man and the parish he worked for. And he's, they're finding out now he does all these jobs along the coast.
It works.
And they, they find his name. His name is William Lee Childress, I guess is how you would say it.
Yeah. And so they know where he lives now. And so they're going vigilante style. They are not involving the police yet.
Nope.
But before they go confront this man, just the two of them. I think that's insane. But anyways.
It is. But I mean, at least they do this backup.
They do.
I appreciate this.
They decide that they're going to get packages together of everything that they have so far, including the tape. Oof. But like everything that they have on everyone involved. And if something happens to them, the guy that like Rust is friends with and works for is going to send them out to police, media, everyone.
So that if they die in this effort, it won't just get smoothed over again like it has in the past. Which I do appreciate, covering your ass like that and knowing like this might go to shit. We might not make it. And like, we can't be the only ones who know about this.
Yeah.
They don't get the tunnel vision that bad. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Where they're just like, we have to go confront him. It's
Ourselves.
like, no, they don't get that kind of hero complex where they think they'll automatically win.
But they both seem very okay with it being the last thing they do.
At this point, yeah, like obviously we talked a lot about Rust's mental health, but I feel
Right.
like Marty is also in a really bad place. Like he's lost his family.
Yeah.
He's not really in minimal contact with his wife, and they had two daughters.
He does go to see her before he does
Mhm.
this. And he's basically, I think he just tells her thank you. Like, thanks for everything. You're a great mom. Like, thanks for supporting me. I'm sorry. Like, just wanted
Which
to say
that
goodbye.
would be so concerning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she cares about him still, you know, she does. She goes
Right.
to Rust and she's like, what is happening? Like, are you going to get him hurt?
Yeah.
You know?
They're both in a bad place here when they're going into this confrontation. And so, yeah, they go to Billy's and he runs from them and he leads them to an old fort. And there's like a maze of tunnels that have been similarly crafted as like the twig structures. Like,
Mhm. They're giant.
and it's like sprawling, like it's
Yeah.
a maze in there, and they quickly lose him in there.
This is the one thing that I feel is not that realistic, because like it definitely seems like it is an old fort, like probably has a lot of historical significance.
Mm-hmm.
So I find it a little weird that like the state's not like capitalized on that, or like ruins of that.
Yeah.
It's like a video game level, like a video game set that they run through
It
these
feels
tunnels.
that way. Yeah. Having broken into a fort and run through fort tunnels in the middle of the night, I can say that
Still
like
can't believe
maybe
you did that.
maybe it's just so far in the backwoods. And,
Yeah, on private property.
right. Like I'm sure the state is aware of it and recognizes it as like historical, but maybe there's just like from the state perspective, like no motivation to like fix it up or like make it some sort of attraction. So
Yeah.
like they don't check up on it very often, which I think is
Clearly. I mean,
clearly because this man has like a little rat
yeah.
has turned it into like a big nest of like horrible. And it's just, so
Yeah.
Rust goes in running after him, chases him in while Marty calls the detective for backup.
Yeah, the new detective. Yeah, basically, you know, he had talked to them right before they went and was like, stop wasting your time on Rust. Like, are you going to be there for us when we actually need you?
Mhm.
Doesn't tell them what they're planning, but, you know, the guy does come through.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
So they get to this, like, through the labyrinth of tunnels, they get to this kind of like atrium where there's a hole in the ceiling, and a lot happens here.
Right. So it's just Rust in there right now, following Billy through the tunnels. He has like a vision in here.
Right.
And it almost bleeds into cosmic horror, kind of. It reminds me of the end of Outer Wilds. When do you know what I'm talking about? Where you're looking into the eye of the universe.
Oh,
and
yes.
It's just like this big otherworldly thing where you're just like, what the fuck am I looking at right now?
Yeah.
And like Rust is like having a vision and looking at this thing like,
and it's extra terrifying because you know that this is the worst time to be having hallucinations.
right, like he is literally chasing a serial killer through these tunnels who are, you know, he doesn't know where he is at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's very tense. It's
Yeah, and Billy does stab him, and then Martin runs in the nick of time and shoots Billy 3 times, but this man does not go down.
playing by like you said, video game rules.
Yes,
this man
right?
gets shot 3 times and is like,
He's
just brushes it off.
unfazed.
You should be down.
He proceeds to throw the hammer that he's holding at Martin and just like kicks it into him. And then as he goes to pull it back out to like, you know, finish him off, Rust has gotten the gun and shoots him in the head.
Which does finally
So,
do what it's supposed to do.
and then he pulls the knife out of his body, which I feel like you're not supposed to do.
No, probably not. And probably not
Rust would
Like-
know that.
Yeah, maybe if it's in an extremity, maybe, but like certainly not
Yeah.
like an abdomen stab. Don't pull it out.
Maybe
Move
that's
it.
him wanting to die in that moment.
Yeah, that's
Maybe.
very true. That's very true.
Man, the scene of the two of them, just like, I think Rust's head is in Martin's lap or vice versa. Like they're just like laying down together. Totally incapacitated, can't move.
If Martin had not called backup, but called the detective, like I mean, they would have died out there.
They would have
Because
died.
They would have both succumbed to those injuries. So yeah, the police do get there and they wake up in the hospital, basically.
Mhm.
Martin does, at least.
Yeah. As heroes again.
Yeah, which I mean, it's just kind of the wrapping up of the season now. So he
Mhm.
wakes up first, and there's actually a really, really touching scene where his family
Yeah.
comes to see him,
Mm-hmm.
and he breaks down.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard scene to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, their packages went out, the stories everywhere.
Yeah,
And
and-
they leave the hospital together.
That's also a very touching scene. Like he confesses to Martin that he doesn't feel like he should be alive. He feels like he should have died down there. And he's like, I could see my daughter. I could see my dad, like the people waiting for me in death.
Mm-hmm.
And then I fucking woke up in the hospital. But I think his bond, to me, I feel like his bond with Marty is the reason he accepts being alive.
I do too, because the final moment of the show is them leaving the hospital together, and Rust kind of expresses optimism
Mm-hmm.
about life in general. So it's kind of like made clear that like he's maybe not in like a suicidal place anymore and has
Yeah.
come to find something to live for. And I think like part of what he's found to live for is his relationship with Marty.
Yeah. And vice versa. I mean, it's really incredible that his family come to see him and kind of, I don't know if they forgive him, but they want to be there for him. But other than that,
Mhm.
it doesn't seem like Marty really has anyone either to live
No,
for.
yeah.
So they really find solace in each other, and it's very cute. They're like arm in arm. I mean, because Russ can barely walk, but
Yeah.
they're arm
He
in arm.
just got out of a coma.
Walking to the parking lot together, and that's how it ends. And it's, I think their relationship is definitely at the heart of it, and I think it's all pretty realistic as far as the way it plays out. And they even talk about what went down with Maggie, and Rust is like, I think we were both at fault. I mean, we all make choices, like we all made some bad choices, and they get through it. They like forgive each other, and
Yeah.
it's cool.
Those final moments, I feel like, are why I feel like the show is about them
Mhm.
and their friendship, which I would call it a friendship by the end.
Yes, right.
I think it is like, this is a friendship now.
Yeah.
Before, it had always just been like a mutual respect.
Mhm.
And like, it's their story. And I like it a lot.
They are bonded by some fucking trauma by the end of it. So
100% trauma bonded, but it's
Yeah.
keeping them both alive.
mhm.
Yeah. It's like, I want more of them, and like, I want to know where their story goes, but like, also, like, it probably doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm sure they maintained a friendship and
Mhm.
probably proceeded to do like PI work maybe together.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know that there was more story there to tell. So I don't
Yeah.
disagree with the choice to
And it
move on to a new story. for
I
season one.
like that it ends, and I feel like it's such a positive note that it ends on, that I think I would be really frustrated if they continued it, because they would have to add new obstacles for them.
Mhm.
And I want them to find some peace.
Yeah, they both deserve some peace at this point.
Yeah.
After all the shit. For them, this is a 17-year
Mhm.
long story. Like they
Mhm.
meet in 1995 and this story ends in 2012, and we've been through some ups and some downs personally and professionally.
Yeah. Right.
But it's just very good storytelling. I really like the first
Mhm.
season.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to watch another season, see how it is.
Yeah, I'll probably skip to the fourth one next,
Yeah.
which I think is called True Detective Night Country.
Mm.
That one's set in Alaska.
Alaska. Cool. Thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of Senior Detectives. Next time, we will be talking about The Bullet That Missed, which is another in the sequence of the Thursday Murder Club book series by Richard Osman, which we've done the first two. So go listen to those.
Go read those.
Go read
and
them.
then listen to those.
They're so
Because
good.
I maintain that these books should be read first and foremost.
Yes. And they're coming out with a movie of the first one.
Yeah, Netflix making a movie about the first one. I hope they continue to make the movies because this third one I really enjoyed. It's I think my favorite of the three so far.
Nice. Okay.
But yeah, those books are extremely heartwarming, and
yeah,
it'll be interesting because I feel like as far as filming that one on video, I'm gonna cry a lot. I always cry a lot when we cover those books.
It's so endearing, and Hannah cries joyful tears.
Oh man,
very easily.
It's too wholesome for me.
Look, there it is already.
Every time. I know. Just thinking about it. I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
Yeah.
So, anywho, we'll see you next time for The Bullet That Missed.
Bye.
Bye. Many thanks to Kendall for editing our pod and for our lovely theme songs. You can find his work at lounginglappin.com. Thank you to Cozy Snail Designs for our cozy cover art. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/senior detectives. We are also on Twitter at SNR_detectives, TikTok at SNR Detectives Pod, and on Instagram at Senior Detectives Pod. See you there.